So in the preparation for this kind of inner balance and basin posture practice, I want you to start so that you're sitting directly in front of your bolster that's lengthwise behind you so it'll be spineful support. And when you move your feet to each other, the knees will clearly go outwards, unless you were on your back with your feet side by side. But pattern the position of the legs so that the legs are kind of like these bands that come out of your ankle and they kind of shoot down from the pelvis, or you could say hip. And these bands, we're going to put a band around them, even though it's a belt, it's kind of a protective band. So this posture is ideally, I got a big loop, bring it around my head, around my waist, that it's also allows you to feel safe. So you might notice if you do this with a belt, after a minute or two, you don't notice the belt as much unless it's too tight. So I want you to make that safety even more clear. So you'll have the belt in that loop, and then you're going to make a little bit of a twist. So I just have a very wide loop. And then take a twist in the belt and then scoop that over the tops of your feet to your ankles. So you really are kind of seizing the ankles. You know, if you were to tug a little further, the feet would kind of move themselves up and down. So you have this cross, kind of an X, and then you'll tighten it up. I think the more you practice this crossing, cobbler's pose, crossing cobbler, you'll play with getting the body secure. So I've got my belt kind of obnoxiously low, right to the eyebrows of the buttocks. It seems to give me support, and my legs are pretty low as well. So I'm going to bring my blocks up a little higher. And then if you have sand, keep it nearby in case you like to use that for the ribs. And then as we lower down, the focus is to soften the muscles of the abdomen. And so that would mean sides, posterior, not just the front, which is maybe what you point to for an abdomen. And so if you like to have that sense of strength training, you can also add your sandbag. And if you decide, well, maybe today I'll put my sand on my feet, or if you have two, you'll put one on each inner thigh and let this area be clear. So possibilities are there. Now with the arms broadening out, whether you have sand or not, your emphasis is to bring the hands so that they're off the ground, and the neck has just that right amount of lift. So for me, this seems a little bit surprisingly high. So for my neck right now, so if I get a feeling of shoulders back, maybe your blocks need to go lower. That can also affect your neck, you know, if you're arching more in your lower back, to have the blocks lower. So have the arms so they hover over the ground, and then feel after that hovering experience that you reach the arms back. Even if you have sand on or not, you reach the arms behind you and get a feel for the independence of each side of the abdomen. Okay, I want you to emphasize softening the muscles of the abdomen, or muscles around the abdomen, and expand and contract, and emphasizing that you're lifting with the inhale, so you're filling the body, and on the exhale, it's an emptying of the body. Okay, now to let this be effortless, you let the arms lower down, and the reasoning behind them moving back is to work on as much expansiveness, and also that feature of when the hands are touching and the breath is kind of elevating that inside environment. The inner atmosphere has movement with the breath. It's as if it's kind of its only hope, right? To either improve the circulation. Right now, it's that you have breath. So experience and kind of expose yourself to the feeling and sensations from the breath. Do not hurry it. And maybe there's parts of the torso that you are familiar with breathing. Maybe it's like the belly force. So at some point, I want you to notice the pelvic floor, so it feels kind of groin and connection to pelvis. Notice that relaxing. And then pick up that energy of the movement of the core with your breathing. So as you inhale, you're filling the lungs. And the abdomen expands, so the diaphragm is moving appropriately, right? It's moving on a moderate level, natural downwards. And as you exhale, feel the abdomen calmly center. Let's take a few moments here with that energy of filling the body through breathing, nose, nostril breathing. And if you are comfortable with that breath moving out of the mouth, or maybe you like to focus on breathing primarily with the nose. Whichever is most comfortable, that keeps your heart rate low. So sometimes having the mouth closed for reasons of pressure, right, causes an elevation for some people with the heart. So be in tune with those subtle energies in the body. Okay, and with the next few moments, the shoulders back, the chest open. Become aware of where your mind is moving its attention towards. Maybe it can go into your practice now. And if the arms are pushing open, I want you to let them slide down enough so it's really casual for you. It's easygoing, and you may even notice if your arms get pretty close to the mat. You want to find that right movement of the arms to relax so that the shoulders do feel like there's an element of them pushing back. Okay, so we're going to switch the belt. Now, I don't know if you feel like the belt's pretty secure, but it does have a layer of support for your pelvis here. You kind of notice that before you take it away. So it's as if it's really holding that basin, right, kind of the basket weave of the pelvis. So as you unbuckle or you kind of finagle your way out of that belt, we're going to move into a mild glute stretch. So you're going to slide the belt away from around the front of the legs primarily. And then, kind of feel how that left knee is relaxed open. And then as you put the bottom of the left foot down, I want you to bring that right foot up. And if your spine lightly kind of trickles down and slides down, kind of feel where the placement of your buttocks are in this position. And it's a good amount of effort just to hold the right leg up, just to keep this for your hip flexor. But notice when you lift up and you cross the right foot to the left leg, it doesn't have to be specifically ankle to knee. It might be a little more of a crossing for you some days. I find the less I cross my leg far over, the easier it is on my knee. So that's just something to maybe notice. You put a ball or a sandbag, I think is easier, next to the left thigh. Some of you use blocks from time to time, but make sure that you don't have any distraction of props besides what you need, besides your upper outer left hip. And then tilt the body, the bones of the lower body towards the left. And I want you to reach for your right knee with your left hand and just get a feeling here of pulling. that right leg and feel when you hold on to the pointedness of that knee, the bone, pointing. Now feel when you hold on to it, where the circulation is moving into your outer right leg. Right, should be high, nothing below, nothing in the calf. It's very isolated from the knee to the well, actually maybe even more than the hip for you, maybe around the buttock. So I want you to feel that you're pulling that leg, those parts, right? You're holding the knee, you're pulling it a little towards you. Not so much across today as much as towards you. Reach the right arm back, you're sandbag free, unless you have it besides your hip. Stretch your right arm back and less over articulation, like, so don't get too, no, you can be exuberant if you feel like it, but feel if you can kind of slow it down as far as the energy of lifting up the ribs. Isolate, and then as we take it to the other side, just kind of let it be cross, right foot down, left foot lifts up and over to the right leg. Move at your own pace, the ball or the sandbag. I'm going to try the sandbag this time and see if that's a good support for me. And then tilt. So if the block is in the way, I'm not a big fan of having any blocks for this one personally. It's less jabbing right into my skin. So tilt the body weight onto that object besides the upper outer right hip. Hold onto that left knee. And then as you pull the knee towards you, you're isolating and the left arm reaches back. If you don't like the arm going back, keep it on the ground, but good. Feel where the breath maintenance, alternating, is helpful for the mind. If there's such a thing as mental maintenance. Breath maintenance makes a lot of sense for us, but I don't know if that equates a little bit higher level. So when you're holding, do you try to push the leg across, or can you have a little less anticipation? Just pull like you're in kind of first gear here. And your sensation might be kind of burrowed into the upper left leg. And let it burrow in there. Hip burrow. As simple is the way we go here. Easy does it with the movements. And then as that left arm lowers down, we're going to take a block. Okay, you're going to move the knees back center, undo that leg crossing, and then you'll place your block under the back of your pelvis. But now you got to get rid of the blanket on top, slide it back. And if your bolster is not perfectly touching the block, that's probably acceptable here. But let's say you put the block higher. Let's just say you bring it up to second height, but you try to stretch your legs down, it feels too much pressure on the hip bones, then you'll go back down one level, one setting on the block. But if you can bring it up and it's not causing you any discomfort in the hip, then try to keep that elevation in the hip and kind of imagine you've got a belt around your ankles and you can step the feet apart as wide as you want to go. I just don't want you to start to turn the feet in. So the wide stance might be helpful. Okay, put a sandbag across the top of the thighs and feel for a moment here that sand support. Now, if the block seems a little like it's teetering back and forth, then you want to move it down before you accept the sand pressure. But get a feel for this lift of the hip bones. Can't go much higher on your own. And the feet reaching down, legs straight, and then bring the arms so they intersect together at the roots of the fingers. Then you press the hands forward. And then as you flow the arms, it's very slow, so do not hurry it. And get a feel of right when the arms are either over your collarbone, straight up towards the ceiling, or over your face, is about where you want to feel your elbows bend. And then as you move your arms back, good, overhead. If you can reach your hands now around to your elbows. So it's a little bit more of a kind of locked hold. Now, if the mid body, like the ribs, the back of the ribs are feeling a little bit challenged, your work is on recruiting that abdominal muscles, right, that were relaxed in the beginning. Those are kind of gripping a little bit to maintain the shape, right? So there's a little bit of supportive energy holding it together, maybe. You know, if the feet are not flexed, that's okay. Maybe you don't like to flex your feet. You can get a feeling as long as they're not completely turning out. So do the best that you can with that connection from upper to lower. Okay, and then as you uncross and cross to the other side, so that the hands hold the elbow angle opposite crossing. Let's take a few more moments here. Okay, if your core feels like it could get higher, but the muscles aren't there in the legs to lift it up, that's okay. I don't want you to try to artificially attempt forcing your hips higher, and the back of the legs can't organize because the feet are reaching down through the heels. But when you slide your feet in now, so you still could hold the elbows, slide the feet in so the bottoms of the feet are on the ground. Your hips kind of drop down to the support of the block. Okay, uncross the arms, let go. And now when we switch, you'll take the sand away and you'll add the block or the ball that's going to go between the knees. So here what we'll do is we'll lift up the hips and we'll slide the block away. Now, if you're using a block, you're going to lower the sacrum down. You want to feel that, anticipate that interior tilt, and then put the block between or the ball. Okay, but however you're holding onto that object between, I want you to squeeze into it. So the ball is nice because it actually responds to the pressure. It's a responsive surface, but the block could have some interesting elements for the hips of strength. So we're going to be working now on two elements of strength with the ball, right? The adductors and the hips. And the block is going to be primarily hips and spine. So you're going to squeeze in and then take the arms straight up towards the ceiling and then squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then as you come towards your arms reaching besides your knees, I want you to squeeze into the item between the knees. Could be various ones, huh? And then as you come up, you'll find that you still hold most of your back, lower back to mid back on the bolster. Continue up and then come up till you're kind of pre-sitting bone stage. You know, quite energetic through the legs. If you're putting more of your energy in your stomach and you're finding this from the navel center up is getting a little bit tied up with energy, tensing up, I want you to work on squeezing in with the legs, slide them a little forward if that's helpful. And then when you come up, find a way to balance out the energy of squeezing and sitting tall. So it's as challenging as it could get right here for the moment, squeezing and trying to lift up. So your arms will probably move forwards. Good. So get a feel when you're pushing into that object between ball or block. Squeeze, squeeze. Okay, and then as you relax that grip, remove the object, and then take a moment here when you're in that lift, hold the underside of the legs with both of your hands, and you'll tilt back, and then when you lift up your feet, you're not squeezing anything now. Well, you're kind of squeezing your legs with your hands, but you know, notice if the front of the thighs still grip up the hip flexors. You don't have to give an answer, but lift up the feet enough and keep lifting the feet, keep lifting the feet, lift up the heart, look forward and up, not towards the screen. See if you can lift the chest. Shoulders are very sturdy here. They're not trying to push back because they probably can't. So you're going to try to work on lifting up, opening the heart, and then lower the feet And kind of that imaginary string at the heart, lifting your chest forward. Hold on firm with the hand so the hip flexors don't do all your work. Okay, and then as you lower down your hands, I want you to adjust for a moment with your hands quite far out so the fingers, the hands turn out on the ground. You got lots of props around you, I'm sure. But windshield wiper your knees side to side and be kind of free with it. Your feet could be as wide as your mat. Even if you got a really wide mat, that's fine. But I want you to find what is the amount of spacing with your feet that allows you to kind of move the knees. They kind of flick a little side to side. You kind of roll into your hip bones. Right, so try to roll into the hips. If you feel too far back leaning, then you can come a little higher up. I like to be as far back as I can go to strengthen my core. So I've really got my bolster kind of there in case I get so tired I can lay down. Okay. So when you bring your knees over to the left, you're going to come into prep for side sage. So let the positioning now be to prep your props. Okay, so get the belt out of the way. Turn the bolster. I think most of you know the prep for the blankies. So once you flatten those down, you're going to move your arm support between the bolster and blanket. So I like my blanket on the back a little higher. And then my head will mush it down anyway. So ball for some, and the inside of the knee for some, zero ball. And if you have a block to go overhead, you can see everything I've got, and you've got your sand on your hip, try to bring it to the area that you were just working with your knees side to side. So it's going to be close to the hip today. And when you reach out of the waist, the abdomen is to be relaxed. So one key takeaway today is going to be focusing on where your breath effort is in your core body, and to alternate your focus on doing a little check-in with your middle. Doesn't mean that it's the front or the back, but your middle in general, that you're not trying to tighten your face and your core together with your breath. It's the opposite, so that the diaphragm can operate naturally. So body parts, right, will, especially organs, and then muscles of respiration, can work with the least stress. So I always find the focus on things like inversions and twists and side bends like this. You want to have the core relaxed. Doesn't mean that you're not feeling like there's tone in the core, because your body on the props creates the tone, that you're lengthening, that you're not necessarily tightening up, but you're lengthening. It's elongation. So rest in your eyes, come into the shape and breathe. Feel maybe at once the ribs moving with the breath. And if you get kind of eager to put your sand higher, of course, you move it around as you please. Breathing the muscles between the ribs. Let the weight of your head relax. Continue to focus on that, even if you're kind of on the back of your head a little bit, not always on the side. Depends on how your shoulder moves. Your ribs kind of gather their support underneath. So however you're pushed up under you with the bolster will affect your breathing kind of repertoire here. You could call it the breathing tour. Relax the left buttock. And let the benefits of the pose seep in for the breathing muscles, strengthening. And so when we turn in the next moment to our cat pose, the emphasis in like very small movements can sometimes be overdone, or we overdo it, we try. So I want you to let the fluidity be part of your practice. So even if it takes you longer to get there, see if you can explore this upper arm. If you have sand on your arm, you'll want to move that, but feel the ribs open. Now, it doesn't mean you have to push your shoulder. If it hurts your shoulder, then you're not going to be in that position. Let's say that's too much. You have your hand on your ribs, that's better for some. If the shoulder is a little fragile. Now, when you roll back into the left hip, you want to make a moment of movement so that you're pushing your weight into your legs to come up. Does that make any sense? Like we do a lot of kind of disassociation sometimes when we lift ourselves from being on our sides or our back to sitting and then to all fours. So go slow at learning to get into these crawling shapes, and then turn so that your hands and the knees create that frame of support. Now you might need a blanket under your knees. We're going to do a little bit of movement with our hips. So hands and knees, find your table, and then round your back so you're working and flexing the spine and moving your chin towards your chest. Yeah, that will probably be a little bit funny to work with, depending on how you need to adapt right now, but work on getting your upper spine to lengthen and then alternate the spine into that arch, lifting the chest forward. So it kind of moves front and then you round your back. So take a few more cat-cows, alternating the spine's movement. Okay, and then feel how you can kind of sink down between the ridge of the chest and then round your back. You're going at your own pace, I realize. So next time you come to a arched back, let your toes hook under and feel if that is a natural shape that you can lift your knees up and push back to down dog. If it feels a little harsh and a lot of extra work, you might feel moving into cat pose first, or at least kind of a modified cat, and then lift up. Modified cat. That means not as hard working. Okay. So when you lift up, that might feel better. I find it interesting to maybe it's overly thinking about it, to feel from my arch back or my rounded back to dog pose. But once we're in dog, feel the feet reaching through the roots of the toes and towards the heels. Okay. Now the legs might have a different experience of lift. So feeling the back of the pelvis really kind of long all the way down the spine to the shoulder blades. Concentrating on breathing. Right, anytime we invert the body, it's strengthening double time for the lungs, right? The exhale is much heavier. Well, exhales are actually heavier, right, when it comes out. So it's a heavier, just molecularly, but get a feel when you move your weight forward and then down, and try to find relief into the arms here. So I want you to tilt a little bit back, round your back, and then bring your elbows on your bolster. So let's say your bolster is really close to your knees. You might put it a little forward. I want you to feel that the elbows are just on the bolster, your hands are relaxed, there's no hand energy pushing, and you're going to keep that flex movement of the spine. So not so much flex that you're in the poor posture, but you're feeling your upper back muscles lengthening. Okay, so you're pushing into the bolster with the elbows. And then come back to what feels neutral for your spine. So your neck kind of pulls a little forward. And then guide yourself down as if you're moving from your shoulder, your back into your shoulder to come into side sage. So you're going to kind of lean into it to get to this right hip. Like you're a little bit, challenged with it. You don't necessarily always want to push out through your arms to get places. They'll get tired faster than probably this other part of the body, right? The bicep area. So let the biceps work a bit. So putting that ball in the inside of the left leg, we're setting it for side sage on the right hip. You're gonna maybe add some sand. If you have it, I would use it for weight bearing anyway, every opportunity you can. And if you want to have it lengthwise, you can change it up slightly. If it falls off, then you might have to adjust. But go into this length on this side scale, right? The ribs, so many of them. Each of them, right, has that fascial layer to strengthen the breathing muscles. Each intercostal is a breathing muscle. What's in between the ribs. So kind of think about saturating that like sponge-like with your breath. So physically feel the breathing. And that could be your only meditation, right? It's physically feeling breath. The left hand could be on a block. If this is too much for your arm, then don't do the arm reach. You can have the arm bending, opening the chest. You can have it resting on your side, on your sandbag, or down to that bolster. Just kind of hold on to it. So let's come into the side sage pose. If you're comfortable here with the length, good. And you've got the arm positioning, so the lower arm is certainly easy going. Shouldn't be any strain in the right arm here, attached from your blade, releasing down, and then through the bolster, between the bolster and the blanket. Not through the bolster, but between. Relax your inhale and your exhale. So be sure to bring your head to a place so that you're actually feeling supported. Give the last few moments, make sure your neck is comfortable. And maybe if your arm is overhead, that doesn't relax your neck. Okay, now this time when we come out, we're going to, kind of visualize our legs are going to go lengthening down towards the foot of the mat. So we'll take it so that the leg parts are going to have to join up towards the balance of a bent knee anyway to get yourself along. So slide that left knee towards the right and sand goes away. And remember that movement on the elbow that we used to try to get ourselves down, if you did or you didn't. You're working with this midsection. Think about your ribs kind of moving you around, right? So they're helping you get some motion. So roll to the right with the ribs. Use your core to bring yourself up to sitting. And then take the bolster to the front of your mat, to your feet, actually just down to your feet. And then as you put your legs on top, well, this is a time you can move some of your other props around. You'll need a couple blocks next to your legs. You'll need your other blanket off into the side yard. If you've got a ball, keep it nearby. And then get your belt and buckle up the legs. You're going to bound them. So you're going to take the belt around. You might start at the knees. This is a good place to kind of know that's a it's a bending place when things are working well. So I bend through and then cross the belt so it's bound to the legs. The legs are bound for this. But oftentimes that's a description in these prop usage is bound. So feel where that belt is above the knee, so it's going to feel like it's on the thigh tissues. And then I got my blanket at the back and it's flat. It's not, for some of you might have it so it's in quarter fold. Some you're going to have, remember it's a bridge pattern. You might have the blanket a little bit lower. Okay, so you just push it all the way back and flatten it out. You can always make it higher up if you don't like this. And so we come onto the back space and I've got my bolster kind of snug under my knees so that when I lower onto my back, the feet feel pretty solid on the bolster. You can always hook the bolster with your ankles. If you don't like how close it is, you can push it away. But the more lift you have, the more massage through the back. It gets you to go higher through the spine. So start with just a test drill here for the spine. So hands onto the ribs. So you're doing kind of this breathing bridge. And when you inhale, it's challenging to talk and do this and feel where the breath is operating. You're going to feel obviously some expansion. And that's the key. So you're not sucking in when you inhale. I mean, you feel like you're pulling in through the nose, but I just generally always imagine a tube from my nose to my belly and expands. It's my go-to now. So when you lift up your hips, the ribs, this whole area might feel like it all kind of spreads out with the breath, and you're not sure where that pulse is. I want you to still feel that this area is able to move. It's not locked. You're not gripping so much you can't flush and basically cleanse. That's the key. You want to be able to flush, cleanse, get things moving. So now that I've moved my hands down to my hip bones, those are going to go up too. Okay, so bring your arms overhead. So reach back. That's overstating it though. Just let your arms go back. You don't have to force anything. Now I push out into the bell. I'm not worried if my knees are kind of moving outwards at all. In fact, that seems to be kind of the new teaching. Like let the legs be bound for this pose so that you don't get too wonky. But when you feel your legs push out, notice how the buttocks don't have to grip. You don't have to clamber down into the glutes. And then just lower the spine. And just keep going with that. That was a little slow, I know. So you're going to work on feeling the natural arch in the back when you're tilting the pelvis on the floor. And then you scoop and let the lower back muscles meet the tailbone. And then you're lifting the hips up and moving the arms back. Your main challenge, I have a feeling, is going to be to relax the buttock, right? So it's not trying to grip to get your hips to lift because you got a belt. That's why. Use the leg muscle. So push out into the belt when you lift your hips up. Your glutes will fire. I know you're going to fire through them. They're going to activate because your feet are pushing. But I don't want you to do so much deadly gripping that you cause more hip flexor tension. Okay, so feel it when there's a world. And if it doesn't work for you to have your arms lifting, you could put your hands on the front of the thighs and then just kind of feel that you're pushing the legs out into the belt and you energetically are lifting and lowering. So massage through the spine. And then at least one or two of them when all your focus is on is the movement in the spine. So lifting, pushing out into the belt, lifting and lifting. And then the last time what we're going to work with is, I think we'll keep the belt on. We can do this. And then we'll take our blocks and we're going to keep a lift of the hips, and your buttocks might start to activate because they don't know if they're supposed to be part of the party or what. But you're going to take your blocks and you're going to either slide them flat under the back of the pelvis or at the second height. And I know the second height might be a bit much, but if you have it so that it feels like it's under the pelvis, it might be a little more natural for some of you than you think. Okay, so of course we're all extremely different in our feeling radar here. So go to what feels okay. If the 2 blocks flat or 2 stacked flat, one on top of the other. This will be challenging for your breathing muscles. If you're trying to talk, you can notice a little bit of influence in the inhale. Okay, so I want you to get lifted. So you're on a block or 2. If you don't like the 2 blocks, use 1. I just have them right next to each other and they're side by side underneath my pelvis. Okay, so we're working with the diaphragm influence. We're going to do a legs up, and we are going to do it at the end too at the wall. If you aren't able to stick around for that, make sure you get a little legs up the wall. At least 5 minutes before you have to go, just so that you have that experience with the pelvis. So I want you to lift up. Now you got 2 legs bound. It's a little different. So you can just still lift 1 foot at a time. And I want you to tighten the belt down. So slide it. You can just slide it up the leg and that'll be tight enough. And then as you lift up your feet, you'll have that legs up. Very powerful support with blocks versus a bolster. It's just a little bit more firm, right? They don't mush at all. So feel the feet lifting. No worry if they're flexing or pointing or neutral. Find where it's just the least stress that you can bring to your feet. Okay, feel the natural arch. And if the feet do noticeably try to move towards your face, your work is on moving them away. I usually feel like my legs are vertical and then I'll see they're not, they're too far back. So it seems to be general that if you're looking your peripheral vision towards your legs, that they feel like they're a little forward from your hips downwards towards the foot of your mat. Okay, make sure the belt is tight enough so you don't have to put energy into holding them together. It's restorative. Arms go back out, and they can go out so that the chest opens. Hands back. And strengthening the diaphragm. Abdomen moves with the breath. But it has to work against gravity so that the abdominal area actually pushes into the diaphragm when the diaphragm moves down right now. So your diaphragm has to resist the abdominal contents, basically. So that's why if you were full of food, it would be really uncomfortable. If it was a lot to do this, it would not be a good pose to do. Lifting your legs and being upside down. So relaxing the chest muscles. Feel your respiratory area working. Maybe it's getting easier for you with practice, this type of shape. If it's shaky, you can come down anytime. Okay, now if you're trying to push to get more out of it, can continue on the habit of not overdoing anything. So feel the most mellow attempt you can to keep the legs up, meaning the arch of the spine. The more you practice, right, these patterns of articulation become a habit, body muscle memory. So that you can be in a pose to help with inner kind of rehabilitation, which is always happening. Body's always in recovery from something, healing, regenerating. Okay, now once your feet get a little cooler, you feel maybe a little tingly. That's the idea that the blood is moved from the extremities to the organs. Okay, so we're going to work with that from the extremities to the organs now when we do our twist. So if you feel this pressure in your abdomen like it bulges, I want you to try to let that area soften. It's already working a lot, so you don't need to try to tighten up in your breathing. Okay, now bending through the legs. The belt's going to feel really tight because you had it lower before. So we might as well just unbuckle and lower the feet. And then once you push down, notice the buttocks working here now without the belt. So kind of visualize a strength vein. Let's just pretend there's a strength vein from the footing pressure to the back of the leg, the back of the knee, down to the rear. You strengthen that ray, lift up the hips and then slide the blocks. And as you lower down, you get to choose your pattern of movement with your spine. So just let it go down, slinky motion through the hip. And the spine is what kind of keeps the pressure. And once your spine is down all the way through the tail space, I want you to feel your feet push into the bolster. That's high enough that you can keep pushing. So feel that push, feel the back touch all the way down. So it's none of it's lifting or creasing. And then feel that whirl of movement into the belly relaxing. So the abdominal area has a tilt, it's like a natural body tilt through the pelvis. So keep the natural, it's really a mild tilt. You know, like when you're not tucking your tail and arching, it's just a tilt. And then you're going to take your bolster and push it over to the right. And what we'll start with on this one is a belt. So I want you to have your bolster on the right side of your mat, so it's off the mat to the side. You're going to lower the right leg down, straighten it out, and then take a belt. If your blanket feels a little bit low, you might roll it up a tiny bit, not overly wedge it under your head, but a little more height, so that you can feel that natural curve in the upper back. And then the belt goes under the left foot, and we take the hand holding on and cross the leg over to the right. So keep it simple and not overdone, but you'll feel the natural, maybe a little bit of arch in the back. If you don't like to create more arch, don't do it. So if you feel fine with this idea of straight as you can do, and then cross over straight to the right, maybe a little curve here and there with the knee bending, a little bit of arch in the back, but blend the movement. So you're holding firm with the right hand and the right foot is flexing. So your belt is around the center of the foot. Some of us might like the belt lower towards the heel to get the back of the leg. However it lands, I like to just let that be. Okay. Now, left hand to the left hip, because this is where the sand will go if you even use it. But just feel that the side of the upper leg, let's just call it that. Let's not give it any other anatomical reference. But you want to get a feel of that reaching downwards, just straight down, not kitty corner or what have you, just straight down. Okay, now bend through the left knee, take the belt off, and then bring the left leg to the bolster. Now, if this is organically where it is, where the knee is not on the bolster, it's just not there when you take away the belt, then what you might find is a blanket is important to you. Or you might be okay with the sandbag going on the outer leg and the leg now gets to move down. But you know, if it's naturally a little bit up, you might use the blanket on top. Just, you know, see, it seems like it's making it easier maybe for some of you. So you get to choose. Okay, so add blanket or no. One day you might try it and just think, oh, maybe that's really comfy and you like it. Maybe it's too lifted. You don't get enough stretch. So take in sand on the exterior left leg and then spread open the left arm. If you prefer sand on the left arm, then you have to kind of get that routine going with the right hand putting a sandbag over there. But if you turn your head to the left or you let your head nod side to side, eventually you're rotating good to the left side with your head. But you're rotating both directions, right? Lower body goes to the right, upper goes to the left. Not required to make this left hip have more stretch, but sometimes the sand adds enough that you don't want the the bolster too low, or vice versa, you want the blanket on top. Okay, so I find that the ball, if I have it, does help me at the sacrum. It's certainly an anchor. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. And let that focus be on the openness of the left arm. I find it takes away some of the nagging parts of the pulling and the stretch around the hip. It just brings in a nice neutrality to the pelvis. So it's up to you if it even arrives for support in your mental, category of thought there. Maybe it does or doesn't. But feeling the waist turn. Do not force it. Find what is nourishing to your joints, to the weight of your head back. Now, even though you're on your back and it might be mellow for your breathing, emphasize the inhale. Easier to get sleepy on your back than when you're sitting up, a little easier with your breath, excitement. Okay, now on the exhale, feel how the ribs move to the left. They mostly go to the left here, right? You're not really trying to roll your ribs to the right. You're counter twisting with the left arm open. Even if your arm is a little low, you'd still get a twist. Okay, now, for some of you, you'll want to stretch your deltoid. For some, no chance. But take one more moment of right arm goes across the upper chest. Now, if your arm is a little fragile, you're not going to do this. You're going to let your arm be relaxed. So one moment here with this option, deltoid, you'll bring the left hand to the right elbow and give a little pull to stretch that right upper side of your back across into the deltoid. Get this area circulating for all the vaccines ahead, huh? Work the deltoids, loosen them up, let that tissue soften. Okay, now let go. And then when we do a switch over, this will be a little more involved today with the crossing changeover. So you're going to take a reclining pigeon. So I want you to roll to your back space. We did this earlier when we were starting. But when the left foot crosses to the right knee, this time I want you to put the hands to the front of the hip bones and feel the right foot lift the heel. It's probably not going to make much difference in your ability to do this. But then you're going to let the back muscles try to lengthen down, like you're creating a reach of your tail. Bring the knees in towards you. Okay? And you don't have to keep holding your hip bones if you don't want to. But I want you to work this for a few moments when you lower your right foot down the ball of the foot, and then you pull the legs back in. Now, if this gets to be a little bit too much for your hip, not really your hip flexibility, but your hip flexor front. I guess that's kind of similar, huh? Hip flexibility, hip flexor, ha. So hold the back of the right leg and pull, pull, pull. If you are comfortable with your knee having a little more motion, you can always hold below the kneecap. But if you've had any knee stuff, you'll hold the back of the leg. The knee discomfort on this side, like in your history. Hold on. Steady with the left hip. Breathing. And now let the hands relax their grip and lift the right leg up towards the ceiling. So get a feel of flexing through that foot and see if you can be a little more hands-free on this. So the leg is doing the work, the back core of the body does the work too. It's as if you're trying to get your right leg to stretch towards the floor behind your head. You might not go without any help, but you're working with isometrics right now. Okay. Now bend through the right knee, and then once you shift the direction, lowering the foot to the floor, left knee just kind of swings a little bit open. Okay. And then uncross and keep the feet on the floor, keep that pressure down to the feet. Feel if you can let the bones of the pelvis stay really steady and strong. And then move the bolster to the left side and get your belt underneath that right foot. You can identify my crops by the colors of them. So right foot, cross the right leg over to the left. So we're kind of getting right into this second side. So advance so that the right leg is up, straight-ish. Left leg is straightish too. But as you cross that right leg to the left, your balance beam of awareness is through the hip. And now one side you might feel inner thigh as well. This kind of depends on your side. That might be tighter. You might not have any of those arranged sensations happening, but feel the path of circulation kind of starting to get dosed up in your hip, right? You're getting a dose through the right hip for a while now. So prepare the body for the shape to come. You're warming up through the side of the right leg. Okay, and so your right hand might be on that upper outer piece of the leg. And then feel if you can let your right hand be there and encourage it to move downwards, not letting it tighten upwards. Because the lateral stretch as well. And then you're going to bend the right knee a little bit and just lift the belt off and see if you can guide your leg over. Now, I find that when I prep it that way, it feels a little bit rigid, like my leg is a little higher than, because I normally would roll more on my back and my pelvis. I didn't have the belt first. So kind of feel your way into how would you accommodate your needs here. So when I cross over and I have more hip roll on the bottom, I could just let the leg flop over. So I want to feel where my back of my pelvis, I do roll into the left hip bone. That's true. I'm not, the bottom foot is not toes straight up. So I'm rolling on the side of the bottom foot too. And then if you cross that over and put the ball, the sandbag, those things that we're using. And again, if you need your blanket on top of the bolster, just use it. And add the ball if you're using that. Remember, that's really personal. If it's going to be right at the buttock, a little bit higher than sacrum. And then that right arm is open. So roll the head to the right. Now, don't underestimate the power of the brain moving. But you know, the movement of the brain does influence, right, the awareness or your perception. So feel if you can let your head actually relax to the right. Right, your right arm, actually no, your left arm opens out. Both of them do. But get a feel of turning your head. And that frequency of breath. You know, feeling when that circulation is moving through the back muscles. Kind of visualize that you're stretching from your middle back area, and it could even go higher up with your focus, through this right side of the spine, down into the hip, and through the outer right leg. This just gives you an understanding of the different, fascial lines, and you could call it meridians, you could call it, the fascial tissue lines, which is maybe more scientific than for some lines than meridians, but they all kind of line up. So there must be some truth to those. Okay, and now we're going to do that reclining pigeon. So we're doing a little more of this back work, and then we're going to come up and do a whole kind of mini low lunge series, so that it'll be kind of low standing work. But when you feel that right leg, and maybe you tend to pull the knee towards your ribs to get yourself to come out. So I want you to try to keep the leg just where it's at. Don't try to force it to pull up. The least you can do, right? Just take it as easy as you can from one to the next. And then roll onto the back. So the right foot now has to clutch to the left knee. Roll into the back, so you have to push through your left foot to get onto the back of the pelvis. And then take your time. You're going to bring your left knee in. Probably you like to hold the back of the leg instantly. You want to get a clutch of that so that you can put the emphasis into drive into the hip, right? So you decide, but if the back muscles and the lower abdominal are really clenching to get there, then, take your time. Maybe you need to let the body rock side to side. So there's not as much, there's more jostling in the tissues that way. Has its benefit. And then if you get a feel of pulling through the leg, that might be significant and positive for some. And then a few more moments. Relax the head center. And now lower down the hands and lift up that left leg straight up. So get a feel of that knee moving out. And without pulling, right? So you have your own strength to work with. And then bend through that left leg again this time. And we're going to work our way so that when we come out, we're going to be rolling to a side to bring ourselves to all fours, or maybe you like to roll back forward to sitting. So you're going to come up to lifting your hips and then your spine up to your brain, right? That goes up. But it's kind of fun to try different ways of getting there for how you feel the proportion of your pelvis to your spine. But once you come back to table, get a feel of what your standard of movement is with your middle, right? So when you come to table pose, get a blankie under the knees. You want the height of it to be kind of small, so you don't want to bulk it up with 2 blankets. 1 is enough. And I don't think we need a bolster. It's kind of nice to go minus sometimes. A little bit of bolster lacking won't hurt us. Get a block set in front sides of your mat. So kind of keep it an easy reach so you get that. And then lifting up your hips, so you're in down dog. So let the spine find its strength with the arms input, or maybe it's output, with the arms in that pressure. And this can be pretty hydrating after being on the back for your tissue. So even though you're thinking from this brain, right, to what's good and what's not and what makes sense to you, we're working kind of just on the science of the movement. So feel the arms kind of as a bolting reach. So it's just one pressure point pushing through the hands. Okay. Now stroll through the legs, bicycle the legs, alternate bending the knees. So feel how you reach from one heel, and then as you pulse the heel up, you get a little bit of a lift up through the sacrum. Okay. Now, what I want us to work our way towards is we're going to take our feet to touching, well, the big toes to touching at least. And then take the right foot forward, step it forward between, and then get your blocks under your hands. So the blocks could be low, medium, high height. I do admit the high height is comfy, but you might like the low height to get the branch across the, the back to open up. So you can feel, you might even consider the thought of your spine being kind of this branch. And then there's the arms have their own type of feeling. But when you're reaching the knee to just above the ankle, feel the reach to the back heel, okay? And then pivot the back foot. So the foot turns out to the left, the toes. You're pivoting on that foot, so you're at an angle, but the right knee is still above the ankle. That's tough to keep that nice coordination through your hip line. So keep the right hand onto the block. If you want to bring the block up one notch, go for it. Stretch your left arm open, right? So you're in a little bit more of this side reach lunge, right leg. Yeah, you can work on the arm just being straight up. It doesn't have to go over your face, but feel that turn. So the inner right thigh has to strengthen. Okay. Yeah, you might let your eyes be open so you don't fall back, but having some deep concentration on the right inner thigh, back through that left heel, and then lower the left hand, but we're still going to keep this area open path. So I want you to take that block on that left side, push that right leg a little bit back, and then we're going to bring our right hand and block inside and turn to that left side. So actually a wide stance, feet wide, parallel-ish, maybe a little bit of internal rotation, but take a moment to kind of wag your tail. I know you'll feel more dominance on the right side because it's more open from the last shape, but take that wider stance. And then of course you can lower down your blocks, or you can put your hands on the ground. They can be inside the feet. You can slide your blanket in. So you're in a little more of an inverted path, but you have a wide stance. Bend your elbows. You can use your blocks in front of you like so if you prefer this. Head lowers down. That's one version. Soften the knees. Second version, hands inside the line of the big toes. So they're still, we'll just say toes. Inside the line, that same line of the toes are your fingers. Okay. And then lower your crown down to the blanket, right? So you're working that direction. If you're really far from the blanket, you can add a block. I would use a block over trying to get your bolster focus, but you could bring the crown there, okay? So take a few moments, keep the thigh bones really active, like you're pulling up the top of the thighs above the knee towards the hip socket. You're lifting up, pulling up the quadricep. Good, great. So the spine lengthens. If you're using your hands, right, to hold the balance, I would find that you're also working with the bend of the elbows, but the biceps feel like they're kind of toned. So you have the arms active on the inner and the outer side. If you have your hands forward, you can still feel the muscles, but they're more flexible, but then they are strong, right? So if they're bending, you're creating that strength in the upper back. And if it's forward, right, that flexibility. Now bend your knees and start to bring your head up, right? So it's not going to be fling your head forward day. It's use your hands in control of the arms to walk your hands back forward and get your blocks, or bring your blocks in. Turn to your right foot, very good. And step the left foot to the right foot. So you got 2 feet, I'm assuming. Your feet are about hips distance, okay? And then when you have your spine in its motion from the pelvic base, you're gonna let it just be upside down. So this lead up to legs up the wall right now in the next few moments will be kind of fun because you're really flipping the blood flow around. That's not really the best term of it to say, flipping the blood flow around, but you're definitely tossing through tissues. So get a feel here if you want to do some tapotement, which would mean you're doing some tapping on the back of the legs. Hands, palms are open. And I just press the back, lower leg, the calves. And you can also make fists. And you can also put your hands on the blocks and let your head dangle. You have a few moments. Head relaxes, not forcing the chin in. You're still in this forward tilt. Ribs move with the breath. Step the right foot back. Keep the lunge on the left leg. Knee is just above the ankle. If it's pushing farther forward, manage the balance and take your time. There's no rush. If one of these poses seems interesting and you want to stay, just stay with the experience and feel that weight into the bottom of the foot. I know it seems like it's the leg power, but also assemble how your ankle holds the balance. And then that right foot is going to still stay up. Let's give it another few moments because we're rushing that shape for the joint. So I want you to feel like this left hip, or maybe it's all the feeling of the back of the left leg, this area that you try to get your lunge power, the bottom of the kind of the juice on the underbelly of that left leg. So reach back through that right heel and then turn that foot so it pivots the toes towards the right. And then you kind of sit into that left, you glide the muscle in the back of the left leg towards the knee. It's a pretty satisfying shape for your muscles to strengthen, but you kind of have to set yourself up. You can get your blocks up higher. So you're like really marinating the tissue. That's a good way to think about strength training too, just marinating, steeping through the bone, settle the bone, and then the right arm opens. If you're feeling a little wobbly, then you might keep your right hand down on the other block and keep that turn in the waist, right arm lifts. Now give it a try. Now, if it's not about perfection, but I do want you to get a feel the back foot is not turning the toes towards the other side of the room. They're pivoting a little bit inward. So you have the waist turning, you have the right arm lifting. Keep the lunge, don't push too far back with the left knee. Keep the knee just above the ankle, not over the toes. Steady inner thighs, breathe. It only helps. Okay, now as you reach the right hand down to the block near you, this time we pivot the back heel and we're going to step the right foot forwards. Okay, take a mini path of the forward bend, keep the knees in a strong bend. And we all have a bolster nearby. I don't know where your wall space is in the next shape we're coming into, but let your abdominal organs move towards your legs and let your brain relax. Okay, feel the attempt of the belly to be massaged by the breath and the legs. And if your arms are really taut, holding, you might let them dangle. Now I want you to feel the contrast of the legs really tone here. They're turned on a lot here. They're very on, right? The energy is lengthening and the muscles are bound. Now you're going to work your way to get your bolster. And some of you might have to scramble, get on hands, knees, find your spot in your room. But I want you to get your bolster next to your wall space. Feel the variation of the legs are. In this variation, they're upside down too, and as far as your brain is, right? The head is below the heart here. So when you come to the wall space, you're going to get your bolster next to a wall or a couch or a bed or a chair if you don't have a wall space. And you're probably still a little upside down in the brain right now from what you just did. So getting upside down right now will be good to keep it going. So you're going to sit with your tush next to the wall and then let the legs swing up. Okay. Now, if you have to go a little early, this is important to get the legs up or to return to it at some point, not too far distant in the day. But get a feel of the hips. Now, you could have more space between your hips, or sorry, your legs, the upper legs, the buttocks and the wall, it's often taught, right, where there's a block between the wall and the bolster, and the seat is on the block. Often. So you might like the bolster a little farther away sometimes. Add your sand to your soles so that weight awareness in your feet is like you had on your feet a few moments ago standing. And so it's the same element of energy in the legs, but it's reversed here. You still have weight on the feet, like when you're standing on them, but now legs are tossed up. It's a toss up. Arms go out to cactus, and the spine is in a natural length right now with its lift on the bolster. The back muscles are regulating movement, even though you might feel as if things aren't necessarily turned to a status of being kind of vibrationally, energetically getting more and more intense. They might feel like they're softening, but likely the body turns into a little bit of a rehabilitation center with an inversion. Rest your eyes. If you have any hardware on your face, right, you'll take that off. If you have an eye pillow or a towel to put over the eyes for that curtain of darkness, or you could do some palming, create some heat with the hands rubbing together, and then place the heels of the hands over the eyelids, eyes closed, and relax the hands on the face. So come back to the breath focus we started with today. Softening through the abdominal muscles, and feel where that order of delivering the breath is in through the nose, out through the mouth. See if you can dial into your body, right, as if it is an information stream that's only connected to your brain, right? So you're going to be able to master that communication only with yourself. So feeling an ability to tap in, breathing in, and empty, cleansing, nourishing with the inhale, cleansing with the exhale. Now, if you feel you want to stay with this pose longer, you can. You can stay for minutes. You can stay up to, 15 more minutes if you would prefer, or 10, whatever you'd like. But get a feeling of where that energy is around the abdomen. If you can maintain some of this strength that you get when the legs are up, right? It's a diaphragmatic strengthening, and then the exhalation is longer. Right? And remember, exhales are heavier, right, than inhale as far as the actual energy exchange. So trying to work with a little more length on your exhale, letting go. For the lightness of being, right? So bring the feet away from the wall, bend the knees. Then maybe you let your sand drop overhead, and the knees soften, and your feet are away from the wall. And then if you can let that energy run through the spine to the tailbone, and then as you roll to a side, let your hands find the support or your elbows to get yourself up. And then feel where you can move into a sitting position, maybe cross-legged. Maybe you have your knees pretty perked up. But when the motion of the feet slides a little bit forward, the knees might angle to help the hips. Not that they're going to go some wild and crazy direction, but feel where you monitor your sitting bones. And then back to that circulation in the shoulders, roll them back. A moment here to connect to your centering breath, and even the collective that is in the class, even that I'm here leading and there's others into this rhythm. Bring your hands up to unity in front of the heart, or maybe they're across the heart, and lifting up with the inhale. And with that exhalation, letting go and bowing into the space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste.